The Map of Destiny. Part 1. The First Whisper of Adventure. The town of Seabrook clung to the coast like a barnacle, a place where the tide of time moved slowly. For Emma, Daniel, Sophia, and Liam, the days of their 15th summer felt endless, filled with the comfortable rhythm of beach walks and late-night talks. But one evening, a powerful storm ripped through the town, a tempest so fierce it seemed to scour the world clean. The next day, the beach was a foreign landscape of tangled seaweed, broken branches, and new, strange treasures from the deep. Daniel was the one who saw it first, a small wooden chest half buried in the sand. It was no bigger than a toolbox, covered in rough barnacles, but its very presence felt ancient and significant. With a shared glance, they knew their quiet summer was over. Part 2. The Map of Destiny. Prying the chest open was a struggle that left their hands sore. Inside, nestled on a bed of decaying cloth, was not gold, but a map. Its edges were torn and singed, its colors faded to soft browns and greens, but the intricate outline of an island was starkly clear. Liam, with his keen eye for detail, was the first to speak. "This isn't from any atlas," he whispered, his voice full of awe. "The ink, the way it's drawn. It's centuries old." Sophia, already holding her notebook, traced the lines of a volcano and a strange temple on the map. It felt like a story waiting to be written. Emma grinned, her eyes sparkling with an uncontainable fire. "Then let's go find it." Part 3. The Promise of the Sea. 2 days later, the friends pushed off from the familiar shore of Seabrook in Daniel's uncle's old, weathered sailboat. The sun was a brilliant promise in the sky, and the wind filled their sails. As the coastline shrank behind them, they spoke of their futures, dreams as vast and open as the sea around them. Emma spoke of scaling mountains, Sophia of writing epics, Liam of discovering new species, and Daniel of capturing the world's beauty. For a while, the voyage felt like pure, unburdened freedom. They were no longer just kids from a quiet town. They were adventurers chasing a map and a shared destiny. Part 4. The Sea's Fury. The calm was short-lived. A menacing wall of black clouds rolled in from the horizon with frightening speed. The sea, once a friend, became an enemy, waves slamming against the small boat like fists. The sail shredded, the mast creaked, and for a heart-stopping moment, they were certain they would be swallowed by the churning water. Fear was a cold hand gripping their hearts, but in that shared terror, something shifted. Without a word, they moved as one, their actions perfectly synchronized. Daniel bailed water, Sophia held a rope to steady the mast, Liam worked to secure the torn sail, and Emma steered. They were no longer individuals with separate dreams, but a single, desperate unit fighting for survival. Part 5. The Island's Embrace. When the storm finally passed, they were exhausted, soaked, and battered, but alive. And as the sun rose, Emma, her eyes heavy with fatigue, saw it. The island. It rose from the mist like a green beacon, its silhouette a perfect match for the map. A sense of awe washed over them as they neared the shore. The air was thick with the scent of flowers they had never smelled, and the leaves of the jungle were a shocking, vibrant green. Strange birds with electric blue feathers flew overhead. The island was untouched by the world, a living, breathing secret. It felt less like a place to be discovered, and more like a place that was waiting for them. Part 6. The Whispers of the Past. Following the map symbols, they trekked through the dense jungle. The strange, luminous plants in the undergrowth seemed to hum with a soft, ethereal light. After hours of walking, they found it. A massive stone temple, its walls covered in thick vines. As they cleared the foliage, intricate carvings of figures emerged. Liam, his mind already working like a scientist, studied them closely. "These aren't just art," he said, touching the smooth stone. They tell a story. Inside, they were met with murals so vivid they seemed to be alive. They depicted four figures: an explorer, a writer, a scientist, and an artist with a camera, who looked undeniably like them. They stared in stunned silence, a chilling sense of fate settling over them. Part 7. The Trial of the Elements. The temple was filled with intricate puzzles, and the friends quickly learned that their individual strengths were the keys to unlocking them. The first challenge involved mirrors that had to reflect sunlight onto a series of symbols. Daniel, with his practiced eye for light and angles, directed the beams perfectly. Next, a bridge swayed precariously over a deep chasm. Emma, the fearless explorer, took the lead, her footing sure, inspiring the others to follow her across. Each puzzle was a test, but also a lesson. They were learning that their unique abilities were not just for their dreams, but for a greater, collective purpose. Part 8. The Crystal's Vision. At the heart of the temple, there was no gold, no jewels, no treasure. Only a crystal fountain, glowing with a pure, soft light. As they all placed their hands on the crystal, a blinding vision filled the chamber. They saw a peaceful, ancient civilization, living in harmony with the island's energy. The carvings on the temple walls came to life, showing a people who harnessed the island's natural magic for knowledge and wisdom, not for power or wealth. The vision revealed that they had hidden their greatest wisdom here, waiting for the right people bound by friendship and courage, to discover it. The crystal pulsed, surrounding them in warmth and a sense of profound unity. Part 9. The Call to Return. Years passed, and the friends, now in their 20s, had become successful in their chosen fields. Liam, a renowned botanist, was studying the luminous plants he had brought back from the island. But his work hit a terrifying roadblock. The plants, once vibrant, were slowly losing their light. He used every scientific method he knew, but nothing could reverse the decline. His instruments detected a corresponding drop in a unique energy signature, an energy that he could only find on the island. A cold dread settled in his stomach as he realized the crystal was the island's heart, and it was failing. He knew he had to call them. Part 10. The Looming Shadow. The others, scattered across the globe, felt the same urgent pull. Sophia, poring over ancient texts for her new book, found fragmented passages describing a great silence that had consumed a forgotten civilization. The descriptions were eerily similar to the visions from the temple. Daniel, reviewing his photos from the temple, discovered a faint, ghostly shadow in the background of a picture he took of the crystal, something he had never noticed before. Emma, exploring a remote glacier, felt an unexplainable shiver of unease when a thick, unnatural mist rolled in. When they met again, it was clear their first adventure was not an end, but a prelude. Part 11. The Second Voyage. The second voyage was different. They sailed not in a rickety sailboat, but a small, well-equipped research vessel provided by Liam's foundation. The mood was somber, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. As they neared the island, the sea grew unnaturally calm, and the sky turned a sickly gray. The air, once filled with the scent of wild flowers, now felt empty and cold. They watched in horror as the island's vibrant green faded to a sickly yellow-brown. The very life force of the place was being drained away. Part 12. The Temple's Warning. The temple was a ghost of its former self. The air inside was thick and heavy, and the murals were faded to near invisibility. The crystal, once a brilliant beacon, was now a dull, gray stone. Daniel's camera picked up swirling, inky shadows in every corner. When they touched the crystal, the visions were no longer of peace and harmony. They were filled with the frantic terror of the ancient civilization as a shadow emerged. It was not a physical being, but a malevolent entity that consumed joy, light, and life itself. The visions revealed that the ancient people had fled, unable to defeat the shadow, sealing it within the crystal and hoping someone would one day return to finish what they could not. Part 13. The First Trial, the Explorer. The temple pulsed with a new challenge. To face the shadow, they had to prove they were worthy. Emma's trial was first. The floor of the temple opened, revealing a series of unstable stone platforms hovering over a dark abyss. She had to use her explorer's instincts to leap across them, her every step a calculated risk. The platforms would shift and crumble, and the shadow's whispers would try to fill her mind with doubt. But she held firm, her focus unwavering. She reached the end, retrieving a small, luminescent orb that represented courage and physical strength. Part 14. The Second Trial, the Scientist. Liam's trial required him to enter a small chamber where a few of the last glowing plants still lived. The shadow's presence was strongest here, trying to sap the last of their energy. Liam had to use his scientific knowledge to perform a precise ritual, combining the energy from Emma's orb with a complex formula he had worked on for years. He managed to coax the light back into a single plant, restoring a small piece of the island's energy. The act proved that his intellect was a tool not just for discovery, but for creation and restoration. Part 15. The Third Trial, the Artist. Daniel's trial was a visual labyrinth. The temple's walls turned into a swirling canvas of illusions and shadows, designed to confuse and disorient. He had to use his keen eye for composition and truth to navigate the deception. The shadow's illusions showed him images of his own fears, but he held his ground, trusting his instincts. He used the reflection of his own camera lens to find a single, pure beam of light hidden within the chaos, which revealed a symbol on the wall. This proved his ability to see truth even in the darkest of places. Part 16. The Fourth Trial, the Writer. Sophia's trial was the most mental. The walls glowed with a new set of ancient symbols, a final, unwritten message left by the fleeing civilization. The shadow's whispers were at their most intense, trying to cloud her mind with despair. But Sophia, whose entire life was about finding meaning in stories, focused on the symbols. She didn't just translate, she felt their meaning, weaving together a narrative of hope and sacrifice. She understood the final part of the ritual and retrieved the last artifact, a small scroll that detailed how to defeat the shadow. Part 17. The Four Beacons. With all 4 trials completed, the friends stood before the crystal, each holding their artifact. The 4 objects began to glow, their light combining into a single, brilliant beam that pierced the darkness. The shadow, sensing the renewed power, began to swirl and writhe, its whispers turning into a tangible, howling force. The friends, their hearts pounding, knew this was the final confrontation. They had faced the sea, the jungle, and their own fears. Now they would face the very source of the island's peril. Part 18. The Final Stand. The friends took their positions around the crystal, as described in Sophia's scroll. Emma stood at the cardinal point of exploration, Daniel at the point of sight, Liam at the point of knowledge, and Sophia at the point of story. The shadows swirled around them, trying to break their circle. It was a battle not of strength, but of will. They had to channel their combined light and purpose into the crystal to defeat the shadow. Part 19. The Sealing. Following the instructions on the scroll, Liam began to chant the ancient words of the ritual, his voice steady. Daniel aimed his camera, using the prism to capture the last vestiges of the shadow's form, reflecting it into the center of the crystal. Sophia wove her story, not just of a great silence, but of a new beginning, imbuing the crystal with a narrative of light and hope. Emma, at the climax of the ritual, placed all 4 artifacts on the crystal. With a final, unified effort, their combined light surged, blinding the shadow and trapping it back inside the crystal. The air was silent, and the temple was filled with a brilliant, pure light. The crystal pulsed with renewed life. Part 20. The Keepers of the Island. The story was over. The island was safe, its vibrant life and magic restored. The friends returned to Seabrook, their lives forever changed. Their first adventure was an escape, but their second was a choice, a fulfillment of a destiny. Their personal dreams had merged into a shared purpose: to protect the island. They were no longer just an explorer, a writer, a scientist, and an artist. They were the keepers of the island. They knew that their journey would continue, but their story was complete. The great challenge had been met, and they had become the legends they were destined to be. Well, we've reached the end of the story.
See you soon.